Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I will be talking about all of the books I read in the month of April. So in April, I ended up reading 8 books, which is a little less than I usually end up reading, but I read a lot of bigger books this month, which kind of balances out. April as a whole was a bit slumpy for me content-wise. I did put out a couple dedicated reading vlogs, which you guys will see on the books that I have read this month, and I am also in the process of filming 2 other vlogs, but overall I did not post as much as I probably would have liked to. But that being said, the books that I read were pretty average. I didn't have too many standouts, so let's just talk about them. The first book was definitely the highlight of the month and will likely be on my best of 2020 list, and that is Radiance by Draven. This one is a fantasy romance, and we are following our 2 main characters. I am not going to try to pronounce their names because they're very fantastical, and I am not about to show my ass 3 minutes into this video. Let's give myself a little bit more time before I show my lack of brain cells. Our 2 main characters get involved in a political alliance, a political marriage. Our female character is the relative of the king of this particular country, and our love interest is the prince of this different country and even different species. It's a bit of like a Beauty and the Beast aspect, not in the trope where our princess is like sold to the beast or has to go live with the beast and is forced into like Stockholm syndrome. It's not like that. It's because it's kind of an interspecies relationship. Our male love interest is a part of this really ancient species. They are a very nocturnal species. They have gray skin. They can see in the dark really well. They have jagged teeth and horns. So I was actually envisioning the Beauty and the Beast pieces by Abigail Larson, who is one of my favorite artists. So this is kind of how I was envisioning it, and this is a really key part of their relationship because they both find each other incredibly repulsive to look at. So you get so many lines about them calling each other ugly, and I know when you say that it doesn't seem very romantic, but because of the openness of their relationship and the openness of communication, this book showed me how beautiful friends to lovers can be, or like allies to lovers, because right off from the very point of their meeting, they say exactly what they mean. They are very honest with each other. They have a very immediate bond to each other that isn't romantic at all at first. It's just very friendly and understanding, and it is so amazing. And as a person who isn't really a fan of friends to lovers, I like my spiciness. I love my enemies to lovers. If they don't hate each other at the first like 20% of the book, I'm not invested. But this really changed my mind about that because the chemistry is amazing. The eventual romance is so steamy. It is so slow burn, and once they finally get romantic with each other, it is so satisfying. I loved it so much. At first I gave this a 4-star because towards the end it gets a little more plotty and I wasn't really interested in the plot. I just loved these 2 characters so much. So I initially gave it like a 4.5, but since then I have moved up my rating to a 5-star because I have not stopped thinking about this couple. They are probably one of my absolute favorite romances that I have ever read. I highly recommend this to anybody who loves romance, loves a little bit of fantasy. It was so much fun, so entertaining. I read it pretty much in a single day. It was so good, and I cannot tell you guys enough how much I squealed during the reading process of this book. It was fantastic. Hands down the #1 recommendation I will give if you guys are interested in any of the books that I read this month. This is the one to read. The next book I read is for an upcoming ARC vlog video, so I'm really not going to say anything about it. I read Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner, and all I'm gonna say is that this was incredibly disappointing, and I did not like it at all. The next book I read was Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This is a very hyped middle grade here on BookTube, and it's for good reason. This is following our main character, Morgan Crow, and she is born a cursed child, and so she has known pretty much from her birth that she is going to die at 13 years old, 11 years old, I can't remember the exact age. Basically, she has grown up knowing that she's gonna die, so everybody blames her for all of the natural disasters or anything bad that happens in this little town. Her family is very distant towards her and borderline cruel to her. But on the day of her intended death, this very whimsical man comes and offers her a sort of apprenticeship or sort of invitation to these trials. Basically, this book is Goblet of Fire meets Alice in Wonderland, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is everything Goblet of Fire wished it was. I personally was not a fan of Goblet of Fire. I thought it was very messy and very chaotic, and the trials were just not as fun as they could have or should have been. But this one showed how amazing Goblet of Fire could have been. The trials were so fun. The characters were so fun. The place in which Morgan stays is kind of this magical hotel that has so many rooms and so many different magical aspects to it. It is so fun. I had such a great time reading this. I listened to the audiobook, which was highly recommend the audiobook. It was fantastic. I'm very excited to see where the series goes. I also kind of hope that there's a female-female romance in this. I really like the relationship between Morgan and kind of this mean girl that gets this sort of redemption arc aspect, and I really hope that they get together because I think that would be really cute. But yeah, this one was a strong 4-star. Really enjoyed it. So if you are interested in picking up a whimsical middle grade, highly recommend this one. It was fantastic and definitely worth the hype. The next book I read was one that I've had on my TBR for so long. I am so proud of myself for finally reading it, and that is The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Audier. This one is a 1001 Nights retelling. We are following our main character, Shahrazad, as she goes on this hunt to kill this caliph who, as if you are familiar with the 1001 Nights retelling, he marries a woman and then kills her the next day. Shahrazad's best friend was a victim to this cruelty, and so she has volunteered to be the next wife of the caliph, and again she goes in with the expectations of murdering him, but feelings start to develop and aspects change. I did not enjoy this one. I just could not get behind the romance. Even when we learned about the true motives behind Khaled's actions, I just could not suspend my disbelief or really support the relationship between Shahrazad and Khaled. I just don't understand how you can get feelings for a man who murders women for seemingly no reason or purpose. And this is one case where I really didn't enjoy insta-love. I am very much a insta-love apologist. I defend it quite a bit because I feel like it's all about chemistry rather than the trope. But because we didn't learn about his true intentions till like the very end of the book, I couldn't ship them and I couldn't appreciate their relationship at all. And there was also a lot of non-consensual sex in this as well. Everything was fade to black, but that was also a point that I just could not get behind this relationship at all, which was really disappointing because I do love Renee Audier. This is my like favorite cover of all time, pretty much. I also was really disappointed that the fairy tales and the stories didn't play a bigger role in the book. They only really talked about the actual 1001 Night tales and the stories towards the very beginning of the book, and I was expecting it to take a more prominent role in the story because it is pitched as a 1001 Nights retelling. So that's another aspect where I really did not enjoy this. Like, this is written so beautifully and I like the concept. It's just the execution, and I don't feel like there was enough nuance to the actual relationship or anything of that nature that I could not get behind this, and I could not support the relationship and enjoy this very romance-centric book with such a problematic relationship, if that makes sense. I feel like I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent towards the end, but bottom line, I think I'm gonna give this a 3-star just because I did like the writing. I feel like a 3-star is valid. I'm probably only giving it a 3-star so I can justify still keeping this book because I love the cover so much. But yeah, so this was a 3-star. It was a bit disappointing, but I'm happy I finally read this book because I've been saying I've been going to for so long. Now, the next book I read was pretty interesting because it's basically the exact same premise without the 1001 Nights aspect to it. I read The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. This also follows a girl who goes into a marriage with the expectations of murdering her husband. So I don't know what's wrong with me in that is just a trope that I gravitate towards, but here we are. Let's not talk about it. Let's not question it. The more specific synopsis is we are following our main character, Alessandra. She is very much a morally gray person. She is very selfish. She's very much about herself and doing whatever she needs to get what she wants, whether that be jewelry, the affections of men, revenge, or anything of those nature. And we follow her as she goes to attempt to woo and marry the Shadow King. And she wants to marry him, kill him, take his throne, all of that jazz. But she has to make sure that other people do not murder him before she can marry him. Because, of course, he's a king. Everybody wants to murder everybody. That's just how royalty goes. As you can probably expect, she does not end up murdering him and she ends up falling for him and all of those things. I really enjoyed this so much. And I was so surprised because so many people have very negative opinions about this book. Like, so many people on my timeline, on Twitter, and on my booktube feed have very strong hatred towards this book. And at first, I really didn't understand it because I loved our main character, Alessandra. She is so sex positive. I read Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller, and our main character, Alosa, which very similar names. There were seeds of this very sensualness, very sexiness that I saw in the book, but it was never fully realized to the extent that this book did. I feel like Alessandra is such an upgraded version of Alosa, and I loved it so much because even like the first 2 chapters, Alessandra literally wakes up with a man in her bed, and as soon as she wakes up, she's like, "You need to leave." But the man is like, "What? I want to marry you." He gives her a ring, and she takes it, and she keeps it, and she's like, "Okay, I'll keep it, but you still need to go." Like, she radiates such bad bitch energy. I appreciated it so much. Also, the Shadow King, who I forget what his name was, he is also quite morally gray. Not as much as Alosa, it seems, but he is also very ambitious and a bit selfish. So their dynamics were so good because they really thought similarly. I will say that I do understand the criticisms with this book in a sense that this book actually opens up with Alessandra murdering her ex-boyfriend, her ex-lover, and that's like the first 2 sentences of the book. So I'm sure more people were expecting more of the murderous tendencies or felt that it was more tell, not show. But I saw this book as more as, like I said, a very sex positive, very sensual. It is not explicit in any sense, but our main character is horny as hell. And so is our love interest. Like, they are so horny, and it is so beautiful, and I loved it so much. I just had such a fun time with this book. It was fantastic. Alessandra also loves making clothes, so there was such beautiful descriptions of dresses, and this book was just so much fun. It's a standalone fantasy. It was a great time. I loved the character relationships. I loved Alessandra so much. Like I said, bad bitch energy left and right. I loved her. And I loved this book. I give this a strong 4 out of 5 stars. It was a fun time. If you are looking for an entertaining upper YA story standalone fantasy, here she is. She is here for you. I loved it. I also want to mention that this has the we can't touch trope, which only further builds the angst and tension between us. And it was done so well, and this book was so good, and I enjoyed it a lot. The next book I read, I'm not really gonna even talk about at all. I read Crescent City, or House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I did not plan on reading this. I was not going to at all. I had no desire, zero desire, even with the clout that I would potentially get while reading it. I just was not going to put myself through it. But then my dear friend Monty decided to send me a copy without my consent. So I had to read it. I have a whole reading vlog. This is a 1 star. It's probably going to be my worst read of the year. Don't watch it if you're a Sarah J. Maas stan, because nothing I say is going to change your mind. It's just going to make you angry and upset. But if you're not a Sarah J. Maas fan, or you're indifferent towards her, or maybe you like hearing different opinions about things, go check it out. I'm sure it'll be very enlightening to you, seeing me lose my mind over 800 pages of this disastrous piece of paperweight. Yeah, we're done with her. The next book I read also has a dedicated reading vlog to it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it either. But after reading Crescent City, I rewarded myself with one of my anticipated reads of the year. I read Ruthless Gods by Emily A. Duncan. This is the second book in the Something Dark and Holy trilogy, the first being Wicked Saints. And Wicked Saints follows our main character Nadia, and she is the cleric of her country, and she is very important, very powerful, because she has access to conversating with all of the gods in their pantheon. She and her country are at war with the neighboring country of Chenavia. They are considered heretics. They practice blood magic. They've been in this war for generations. And the Prince of Chenavia at the very beginning of the book attacks Nadia's convent, her church, her whatever you call it. And Nadia has to go on the run. And on the way, she meets a gang of individuals, and they all end up creating this plan to murder the king of Chenavia in an attempt to end the war. So this, of course, is the sequel to that. I can't really talk much about it. The vlog is spoiler-free. It's not spoiler-free for Wicked Saints, obviously, but it is spoiler-free for this particular book. So if you were interested in checking that out, maybe seeing if you wanted to continue the trilogy because you weren't sure if you loved Wicked Saints, or you just want to see a person who really loved the trilogy and what my thoughts were, definitely go check that out. Overall, just like blurbs, if you didn't like Wicked Saints, you're definitely not gonna like this. This trilogy overall speaks to, I feel like, a very niche group of readers, and if you're not a part of that niche, you probably won't enjoy it that much. I personally adore it so much. I can recognize its flaws, and especially structurally, that's where it really falls flat, but the magic system, the aesthetics, the entire world is so incredibly amazing in my opinion, and so rich, and I love it so much. So I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, or a strong 4 stars, I believe. So I'm just so excited for the last book. I'm so excited to see how this trilogy ends. And finally, the last book I read in April was Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. I am doing this for a dedicated vlog, so I don't want to talk too much about it. I will also be doing a review for this book because I want to try to do a review for every book in the series if I end up continuing them. So definitely look out for that if you are interested. It's a huge epic adult fantasy, and I'm not going to try to get into the synopsis or anything. Just wait for my review. Make sure you like and subscribe and put your notifications on and all that stuff so you know when it drops. I'll probably post all of the reviews once that vlog is posted, so it's going to be a little bit until you see it, but hopefully you are excited because I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that I'm starting the Wheel of Time series. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but I think it's kind of cool. Alright, you guys, so that is it for this video. Let me know down below what your favorite read of April was, and if you have read any of the books that I read this month. If you guys want to pick up any of these books for yourself, I will have my Amazon affiliate link down below. Doesn't cost you anything extra, it just helps me out in this channel. If you don't necessarily want to purchase any of these books, but you still want to support me, I have my Amazon wishlist, my coffee, as well as my address if you want to send me anything. Please, not any Sarah J. Maas. Please. Just, please, no Sarah J. Maas. Okay, that's the only caveat. You can send me hate mail. You can send me anything you would like. But please don't send me any Sarah J. Maas. Okay? Glad we're all in agreement. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.